Welcome back to Just Scylla. Today's podcast is hopefully inspiring for you, for a family member in your life, for somebody you know. We are talking about addiction, particularly drug addiction, its impact on your life and how you can move from it. I am joined by a special guest. Now, this man worked with me at KSDK. He was a reporter. He was there for 9 years. I adored him. I looked up to him. I just felt that he was moving forward, doing things that we don't get to do as young Black people, to be in front of a major platform and report to everybody in the city that we live in St. Louis, to be able to inspire other people, to be able to make a difference in our community. I am joined by Jeff Small.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I've said all those things about you, and I mean every word and so much more that I want to say.
Thank you.
But you are an example of how possible it is to overcome something and continue to move forward in your life, even if it's in a new light.
Yeah, very, very much so. I would have never thought I would be in this position, never dreamed I would want to be in this position. But I think looking back now, it's something that needed to happen.
It needed to happen. Mm-hmm. So to fill you in, Jeff got arrested for possession of meth. It was a big deal because he's somebody that was on the news who, he's somebody who's important in our community, in the Black community, even in the community in general. This was a shocking thing. I remember seeing it and thinking, oh my God, my heart just went out to him because I knew that the person that he was, the person that you are, something bigger had to be going on.
Yeah. And even to add to that, it wasn't even just the arrest. I mean, I was literally on the front page of the newspaper.
You were.
Front page of the newspaper. Obviously, in this day and age, I was online with the story.
You were on the front. You were trending.
Yeah, I was trending. I mean, once the story hit, it was off and running. And, the other news stations here in town covered it. And, my phone just went from no calls to all of a sudden just calls, text. And I remember I was at home when it happened. And, actually the arrest happened. It's kind of funny. The arrest happened maybe 4 or 5 days prior to the story actually getting out in the media, because I was arrested, and in addition to even having these drugs, I had meth on me. I had meth paraphernalia on me. I also had, I think, 6 warrants out for my arrest at that time from different municipalities. So when I was arrested, they had to actually send the drugs off to be tested and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I got arrested once. Then I actually had to turn myself back in that same week for the drug charge, and that's when when everything hit the news. So I kind of had this lull period where I was back at home, not saying a word, knowing that I had been arrested for this.
But you knew it was just a matter of time before or were you in denial?
I was in denial. I was hoping, I was praying, just like, just let it just go. Let nobody recognize my name, and just let this move on to the next day of news. But in the back of my mind, no.
How did you find out? What happened? How did you finally know that it was public? Because basically what it meant was the struggle that you privately had, and I'm sure your family and friends knew, was now out there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah,
How did you find out?
It was a call, I believe. I think, I don't know if I was at home by myself, but I believe it was a call saying, "Oh my God, Jeff, you're on the news. Your story's online." And I picked up my phone and I looked, and sure enough, it was there. And talked to this person for a minute, and it, from there it was just, just like this storm just overtook me because I was frantic. I didn't know who to call first, what to say, what am I going to say to people? And immediately I was in defense mode. I mean, I think your natural
reaction.
instinct is to defend, to say something, to downplay it, to get people to not be so concerned about you. So I was denying. I was like, yeah, no, there's more to that story. And I called an attorney. I called the best attorney I knew, because I was in fight mode. Fight to protect my image and just.
And you went to the top. I mean, you went to
I
Travis
did.
Noble. You were you knew what you were up for.
Yeah, no, I was ready. I wanted to fight. That's all I thought I should do. And I contacted, a friend who just happens to be one of the best defense lawyers around, Travis Noble. And he told me, he's like, man, he didn't deny that these were serious charges, but he's like, I got you. He's like, just stay with me. I got you.
That was probably the first time you felt hopeful for somebody to say, we can get through this.
Yeah, and I believed him, but really didn't know what that meant. I just heard him like, okay, at least from a legal perspective. But I mean, he could only do so much because there's still all this stuff out there. And I remember even making it worse is that, so I turned myself in to jail, and didn't have to stay long, but, you just turn yourself in for the formal process. They formally charge you. And I think, that next day that the information was out, I had to go to work. At this time, I was doing a part-time job at a local business, and I had to interact with guests. I was the first person they saw when they walked in the door. So, I mean, I remember just sitting there, I would cry, I'd, wipe my tears, and then I'd wait on the next person. And, and it was just this constant, just trying to fight back tears and just trying to smile and just trying to sit there. And I remember calling, I believe, my partner and just like, I cannot do this. I cannot sit and subject myself to this, because all in my mind is I'm thinking that everybody's going, wait a minute. Weren't you just on the paper? I mean, we probably had the paper still in the business because it was just, that day or the day before, so we probably was still sitting around a copy of the paper. And here I am looking at this. I mean, it was the most humiliating, most nerve-wracking, stressful, just devastating feeling.
Like literally, the fact that you got up and went to work.
Yeah.
Very few people would be able to do that.
Yeah. No, I literally, that feeling, when I think about it now, it was almost like, if I could have just gotten in a fetal position somewhere and just stayed there or if I could have peeled back my skin and just gotten out of this skin that I'm in, or just, if I was brave, I don't know how to use the word brave, but, because I've never been I think suicide is so selfish in my mind. But there were definitely those thoughts like, how in the world can you make it beyond this? Like, dude, this is not, you don't need to keep doing this, just give up, just call it a day, but I couldn't do it. And I'm just like, I just got to keep going, I got to keep going somehow. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm sure shortly after I got off work, I'm sure I got high. And therein even starts the beginning of, how, when we talk about this sickness of how sick it makes you. Is even amid this stuff, I still need, my body told me, my mind told me, I need to go get high.
Wow.
Because, over time, my body and mind grew to be so dependent on drugs that my daily life revolved around drugs. It was what I felt like I needed. If I was happy, if I was sad, if I was angry, for every emotion, I felt like I needed drugs, to get up and go to work.
When did you start taking drugs?
So my use started late in life. I went from not using drugs, being anti-drug, up into my 30s, the early 30s. And, and I guess it started out of curiosity.
So where were you? Were you at home?
I was,
and I'm sure you don't want to say all the details, but just picture, give people a picture of that day that basically changed the trajectory of your life. The first time you took a hit.
I believe I was here in St. Louis, out with some friends at the time, out, bar hopping, and I guess I'd known for a while what they were doing, but I just always kind of looked at it and didn't want it, but. I guess this night seemed like the thing to do. They were doing it. They were having fun. And the people were, weren't, I guess what I would say, stereotypical drug users. They weren't down and out people. They weren't, bums. These were professional, educated, the life of the party kind of guys. These were, had some money. They were, hey,
Were you working in the news business at
I was,
that time?
yeah, I was in the news business at the time. And it was, at that time, cocaine is where it started and what I started with. And I think the first time I did it, I loved it, because again, I think I tried marijuana a time or so, but didn't even like that. I never smoked, beyond I was just drinking. But when I did cocaine, it was like, man, that was nice. It felt good. And I think, if I went out the next night, we did more. And I had no idea it was so available because in this social scene that I was in at that time, all I could get, it was around me everywhere. Every corner I looked at, somebody had it or somebody could get it very easily.
So you felt like it was something you could control?
Yeah. I felt, I guess it's the same way I categorized my drinking. It's a social thing is what I thought. And my image of the cocaine users that I had personally seen, again, were professional people. These were, and then, it was like, in this crowd, I was like, oh, that's what everybody does. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I started doing drugs with some of the people that were in the quote unquote in crowd at that time. And so again,
I remember seeing that you were no longer at KSDK.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
So that would be, it was a result of not just the cocaine, but just the lifestyle that I had created. Mm-hmm. Meaning I was going out sometimes 6 nights a week, sometimes 7 nights a week, partying hard with the drugs, drinking, but mostly the drugs, so heavily using cocaine, and then still trying to get up and go to work, which didn't always happen. So I was, showing up late for work. I missed assignments. I was, at the latter part of my time at KSDK, I was bringing cocaine to work. I had cocaine delivered to KSDK. I was the anchor on the weekend there, and before the show, I do a little cocaine, get on the set, do the news. Probably the minute I got off the set, go do some cocaine and get ready to go out.
Was it something that management noticed?
Nobody knew I had a drug problem. They knew I had a reliability problem. So it's like one of those things where, no matter how good you are, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever, you can be great at what you do, but if you're not reliable, if you have a appointment, if you have a newscast that begins at 6 o'clock, you can't show up at 6:05.
Right.
The newscast is at 6. And I remember on one occasion where I got suspended, I was supposed to anchor the show. Might have been the 5 o'clock newscast, and I was asleep. And you've been a producer. Can you imagine? You're an anchor.
Oh my God!
It was a solo anchor show. I was the anchor that day, and I didn't show up. I was asleep. So the panic in the newsroom, people had to fill in my spot and trying to recover, and they had no preparation. So
basically,
chaos.
When you don't show up, the news is either not going to go on, or somebody is going to have to start a career right there and then, or the weather guy has to figure it out. So this is major.
It's ugly. It's people at home don't know what's going on, but they know something is going on.
Something's off.
And
right.
so obviously everybody in the station knows, management knows. So I got suspended. But then, like I said, there were other occasions where I was just late. I wasn't prepared. And so this once awesome person who was reliable, who was, a go-to person there, suddenly became not that person. So, I used to have, a contract would get renewed, no problem. Next contract would get renewed. All of a sudden, when the last contract came around, they didn't renew my contract. But and quite honestly, it's the last thing I ever imagined would happen. But
possible.
A part of me says, you know what? They stuck with me longer than they really should have, because even not knowing what my problem was, another person they could have fired.
Even I could fire me at this point because you knew the state that you were in.
Oh yeah, and that's just what they knew. I mean, looking back, I put myself in so many dangerous, illegal positions while working. I mean, I there were times when in my makeup case I had cocaine, on an assignment somewhere. I had cocaine in my pocket. while we were doing an assignment that, a couple of times I thought I dropped it. Or, I might come in one day and my nose had been bleeding because I'd done too much cocaine. So I'm trying to get to a meeting and I'd just been doing cocaine.
So when you got arrested, you had moved on from KSDK. You handled the PR for Ferguson, which was a major event for the entire country.
Yep.
So now you have all these stressors adding on to what you're already dealing with.
So, and at that time, or I guess maybe in the time that between KSDK and Ferguson, there were a couple years there, some of that time where I was unemployed. So I had lots of time on my hand and idle time that was not good for me. And so I was angry, I was depressed, I was not really sure what I was going to do with myself. And I think I had this reputation that came with me. I had this baggage that I was dragging along. So I wasn't the best looking employer, I guess, as I was looking around at local, you'd have thought I would just hop to another local TV station. Well,
because news spreads.
News spreads, yeah. So I'm sure, at the first time I said, oh yeah, Jeff is great, he's available. I could imagine there was probably another conversation that came that, yeah, but he probably comes with a lot of baggage. Whether or not somebody saw my personnel file or not, still, I'm sure I was a questionable.
Stay away from him, now.
And so from in that time period, I did the switch to meth. Met someone, I don't remember if it was on it's through social media, but someone, hey, you want to hang out? We're hanging out and. It's like, hey, I got some, it sounded better, it's like I got some ice, doing a little ice and it's fun, just get you feeling right, like, I guess at that point I'm like, hey, I got nothing to lose. Let's just have some fun, and did that. And I think even stronger than the appeal or that feeling I got from cocaine, meth was just even on a much, much higher level. I mean, and obviously it is much, much more addictive. And I didn't realize how addictive because when I tried it, I wanted more. I couldn't get enough. And the person who I tried it with lived very close to my house. And so in short order, I was calling for more, like, hey, let's hang out again, and then I realized that this person was actually a dealer. So you add that to the list. So now I can really get it when I want it. And then I just like with the cocaine, felt I had to have it and I wanted it. And I started doing anything and everything that I had to do to get it. And that therein was the beginning of this nightmare.
So I want you to take me back. I think during this process of going through the steps to sobriety, because you had to you went to court. There was a plan for how you were going to move forward. You had to do the things you needed to do to pay your dues to society. And you did. And you just, basically you graduated from drug court.
Right.
Which is huge. That is not an easy thing to do.
Not at all. And I like to tell people, drug court is a multifaceted program that involves, specifically for me, I believe the program was a minimum of 15 months. So, I mean, it is a commitment of time. You have to pay to be in drug court. And it is something that is, voluntary on the participant's part. You don't have to do drug court. I could have just stayed in that defensive mode and took this to court and rolled the dice and see what happens. But these were felony charges. They were very serious charges. And drug court was a way to get rid of these charges if I was to complete it. So I said, let me give it a try. Okay. But again, I had to pay for it. Drug court, at the initial stage of it, I was going to individual counseling once a week, group counseling once a week. I had to attend 4 to 5 Narcotics Anonymous meetings a week. I had to check in with a judge every week, a probation officer every week.
For 15 months.
Well, that was in the latter, in the initial stage. I mean, it lessened the length of time you'd have to go to court. So things changed, but in that very beginning stage, so several months Oh yeah, I mean, you were doing a lot. I mean, it was a serious commitment of time. Also, I had a probation officer. I couldn't leave the state of Missouri. I had to undergo random drug tests, which amounted to probably 4 to 5 days a week getting drug tested. And this could be any day of the week, holidays, weekends. Between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., I had to go report and give a urine sample that checked for alcohol and drugs. So all of this.
And in the midst of it, you're trying to recreate your life, career, because you had filed for bankruptcy during this process.
Yeah.
So it's not like you had a regular job. You were trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. I was still reeling with just the impact of the the image kind of thing.
Which image will put you in trouble? I mean, we are also focused on keeping everything together. That even when you need help, you're scared to.
Yeah.
Because you're scared of being on the front page. You're scared of somebody saying something on social media.
Yeah. Right.
So it's not even.
No, I didn't, for the first part, I didn't even really want to, even amid all the craziness that had happened with me and getting arrested and, so many things, I didn't want to admit that I was an addict. I still felt like, well, I could quit when I want to. And, I thought kind of doing drug court would help me develop skills to do it less, if that makes any sense, and I even wasted hundreds of dollars on, from fake urine and drug things, stuff you buy in these little, novelty stores to beat drug tests. I mean, I researched. I was trying my best to beat the system because I still wanted to be able to use, and I was just trying to think, how can I use and still get through this program? And I would go, at times when I would have to go check in with the judge, I was high many of those occasions, and it wasn't until I would sit down with certain people and they would remind me, like, Jeff, here's the chaos that this has caused you in your life. And we would go back through, we would replay the times that, I wrecked 2 cars. One of them was a wreck on a bridge that I nearly killed myself. Another was I was on my way.
Say that again.
This was an accident. I was in a car accident coming from Illinois, wrecked a car. I slammed into a median. Drunk and high, slammed into a median, totaled my car, and I left the car there. Got up and walked away from the car because I didn't want any trouble from the police. So I had a friend come pick me up from the accident scene, and I left the car there. Another, I was on my way to visit my father, and fell asleep at the wheel, driving a different car. And I ran into a lady's car. We were both driving. I ran into her car. I woke up after the impact, and I was high, and I hadn't been to sleep in probably 3 days. Things like that, or just thinking back on all the many occasions when I wouldn't sleep, because I could lay in bed days on end without getting any sleep, just lay there with my eyes would be wide. I'm looking like I'm awake, but I'm laying in bed because I can't sleep. My body's, I'm tired, but my mind is going.
So let's go back to your life before childhood. Were they the things that lead people to drugs, the stereotypical things? How was your childhood? Mm-hmm. What were the things that you were struggling with when you were younger? Because I'm sure you've done a lot of soul searching, right, asking yourself, why did I go down this path?
Mm-hmm. So I think growing up, one of the things that I distinctly remember is that I've always had a close relationship with my mother. My brother and I, very close relationship with my mother, but she and my father divorced when I was very young, I believe 4 years old, something like that. And then my mother remarried, and I remember things from my father's house when we would stay there to visit. He had weekend custody kind of thing. And my father always had lots of friends that would come and go from his house. I never got to know them, but they just kind of come and go. I just thought my dad was a really popular person. But then I would notice, mirrors all around the house, scales all around the house, mirrors with razor blades on them. My dad had a lot of guns that would be around the house. And as a young kid, I didn't know what that was for a while, but I knew it was different. It was odd. It didn't seem normal. And the older I got, the more I would put two and two together that I think my father is somehow involved with drugs. Didn't know at what capacity, but I thought some things were off. And then later, when I was in college, little by little, I would hear different things, even from my dad, that my dad was actually struggling, that he was involved himself with drugs. And I think at this point, I knew that maybe my dad had actually been selling and using drugs, but we never talked about it. There were mentions, I guess, very little when something had to be talked about, but my dad was around then, but not around, if that made sense. And never knew until later, I guess, what impact that kind of had on me. And so, but I think it gave me this impression, I don't want to do drugs, I just, but I think it just stayed in the back of my mind.
Psychologically, it was part of your DNA that you had to overcome. Yeah. And a lot of times you don't know the impact it's having because you think, I am going to do the opposite of everything.
I did not want to be, and for all the negative things that I thought of my father, I didn't want to be like him. My stepfather, my mother married a gentleman who was a great guy who ended up becoming an alcoholic. So there was that. I witnessed that, and I saw what that did to people, and I didn't want to be that. And he was kind of my first experience seeing what a functioning alcoholic or a functioning addict is like, because I didn't understand at that point how my stepfather could get up and go to work, do a great job, had a great job, but the minute he would hit that door, hit the bottle, and could be, drunk, completely wasted, hours later, and be a totally different person, but get up to work and do it again. And later I discovered that some addicts can be the same way. They can be functioning. Right. And I guess later in life when drugs came my way, that's what I guess I thought. I guess I didn't call myself the addict, but I thought I was a functioning drug user, I guess you'd say that. That's how it would work for me, because I saw other people doing it. Yeah, and alcohol. And I think, alcohol is where it started, because I would do that at night, but it used to go hand in hand. If I was drinking, what I really wanted was the drugs,
Did you struggle with your sexuality?
I did. And I think,
because it's only later that I realized you were gay. I didn't when we worked together in the newsroom. I mean, to me, you were just working, and it was a professional environment. Yeah,
that was a big part too, because in college, I didn't want to come out to my mother, but there were certain situations that happened that I was kind of forced to have some very awkward conversations with my mother about my sexuality. And I think I started telling her I was bisexual, because I thought that would go over a little easier. And even that was very difficult for my mother, because we come from a religious background, kind of one of those fire and brimstone backgrounds where, you're going to, gay people go to hell, and, this is not right. And so had this conversation with my mother, but it was almost like, okay, that's the last we're going to talk about it. We don't talk about it anymore. Didn't say a word to anybody else anymore. I remember in college at my school at that time, they used to come out with a list of, I won't even use the term, but it was a very derogatory term that they used, but it was a list of the gay people on campus. And I made that list one year. And I went to school with my brother, and who is not gay, but who, was very close to me, still is. And it hurt me to my core, making this list, and my brother having to defend me to friends. And, and that was at a time when, definitely not like now, where it's at least a lot, it's not perfect, but definitely it's a lot more
even 5 years ago, it wasn't something, this is just new, where the world is becoming open-minded. Right. And you're proudly in a relationship with someone now. You've handled, it looks from all looks of it that you've decided, this is my life. Yeah. Take it or leave it, as far as your personal choices go with your relationship. Yeah. But that was a journey, and you had to go through a whole lot of things.
It was a journey, because almost every 5 years, I would cross another hurdle. And, it was really been only in this last 10 years that I've now developed a whole relationship, if you want to call it, with my father, my mother, my brother, everybody else in my extended family, even to the point where I didn't sit down with everybody and just have this conversation, but I got to a point of being with myself to say that, okay, either you accept me, either you love me for who I am, what I am, or I don't need you in my life. I'm okay us not, communicating, we're good. If you can't accept me exactly for who I am, I'm not going to another family function by myself anymore. I'm not talking about this girlfriend anymore. This girlfriend doesn't exist. This girlfriend hasn't existed in a long time.
You're going to make me cry because whatever the circumstances are, to get to that point is really growth and healing.
Oh.
Because you spend so much time hiding, and it has all these effects, and people are judging you based on the outcome of those decisions to hide and protect, and all of a sudden your life is all out there.
Yes. And I won't blame my drug use on that whole issue, but I will say, because I don't think I was able to be myself for so long with family and like at work and things like that, I depended so much on my social life. I went to where I felt comfortable, and so that was the bars, that was among my friends, and just surrounding myself in this social scene where I could be quote unquote myself. And within that lifestyle, and not just a gay thing, but when you get involved with the nightlife scene, pick a city, pick a country, the nightlife scene, the more money you have, the more you're around the movers and shakers. There is that element.
It's
not new.
It's addictive.
It's
you're known. Everybody knows who you are.
Yeah. And drugs could be free very often.
Oh yeah, everybody is willing to give you whatever you need,
whatever
you have to be careful to stay away from that when you have all those vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. And the reason I really wanted to sit down and talk to you is because I come from a family that has addictions. Mm-hmm. And so they say that addictions are generational as well. And I have a compassion to be able to understand that you being arrested is maybe the end of what you have experienced. There's always so much more. And that story is so empowering. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And after hiding so much, for you to be able to come out and talk about it, that's huge.
It is. It's something that when I got arrested, when I would sit back, by myself, I would just think, okay, I hadn't been on the news in, many years, but I still made the front page of the paper when this thing happened. So I just told myself, for whatever that is, it still makes me recognizable enough that this is important, that anybody would care about this. Maybe there is a way to turn that on its head and say, okay, if I can turn this around and show somebody that, hey, even a person like me, even this high profile person, even this person who appeared to not have it all, but have a lot of amazing things going for himself, can I turn that around? Can I use that to good? Can I impact people with my story? But I knew that involved pulling back these layers of myself that I normally would never do, because I'm that introverted extrovert.
I get it. Yeah.
Many of us are. I'm never the life of the party. I do what I did on TV, but I always kept my private life, and I wanted that. But I felt like if I can get myself together, if I can get clean, if I can, free myself of this addiction, I've got a story to tell. Then, if I'm willing to tell it, and I made up my mind at some point that, okay, once I used drug court, or the graduation of drug court, as my barometer. As you know, we talked many times, and I just kept saying, I want to graduate from drug court, because that was October of 2018, and that would be exactly 2 years after, January 2018. That's exactly 2 years after I got arrested. It marks over 1 year of 100% sobriety on my part. And so I felt like that's my time to get the work done. Don't talk about it. Just do the work. Put in the work.
Focus on what you
Focus
need
on
to be
me. Focus on getting healthy. Getting my spirit back. Getting my motivation. Getting my passion back again. Just get working on me. Then I'll have a story to tell. And the minute I was done with drug court, and I even spoke at drug court, but I didn't sleep the night before before they graduated because I had so much on my mind, and I'm just like, this is finally happening. I completed this. I put in this work, and now I'm ready. And now I'm ready to share it. And when I pressed send button, when I posted, a video of my speech at drug court, so many feelings were going through my mind, but I felt like a big burden had been lifted off of me. And I felt like I'm just putting this out into the world, and I want to see what happens.
And I watched the video, and your message was basically, even a person like me can be an addict.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
That is so huge.
It is.
So I'm going to ask you a very direct question. Mm-hmm. Are you sober today?
100%. 100%. I have not used drugs of any kind in over a year. It wasn't until I think this past weekend that I had a drink. I had a drink in over a year and a half. I mean, I was committed. Mm-hmm. I was absolutely committed. And in this latter part of drug court, I wasn't doing it for the court system anymore. I wasn't doing it because somebody told me to. I was doing this for me. So when I graduated,
Because you're a reporter.
Yeah.
So you specialize in saying all the right things.
Yeah, right.
And there are people listening now going, is he really sober?
Yeah.
And so I want you to...
I'll tell you this, Scylla. I look at it like this. I feel like I could have taken the easy road out and just not said anything and just graduated and went on with my life. And that way I wouldn't have to put myself under the microscope for people to even wonder, well, is he serious? Is he? But I put myself out there. I did that for me. I'm not in any drug court. I don't get any brownie points for doing this. There's nothing waiting for me for doing this. I am doing this for me and for other people. That's it.
And I believe that because, it's a lifelong struggle.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It's not over.
The big thing is you want to be sober.
Correct.
And you want to stay sober.
Yes.
And you're taking the steps to do that.
Yes. And this helps me. This helps me do that, by talking about it, by, telling people about the ugly parts of this addiction. It's a constant reminder to myself why I don't want to do this again. And I feel like, I don't have anything to tell anybody if I can't tell them. You can hear about the bad, but I want you to know that recovery is possible. I want you to know that I didn't see recovery as possible for a long time. I didn't think people could graduate from drug court. I didn't think people could just stop a habit. I didn't think, this life change, it was really real, because it didn't feel like it. I didn't think that I could get past the image of it, the stigma of it. But I'm a testament to the fact that it is real. And not only this I don't think is just nurturing for the addict. This is for the people who are dealing with, everybody listening right now, if you know somebody, if it's a friend, this might be a spouse that has a problem that you don't even know. Because in my use of drugs, I did drugs with many people who would go home to a wife, would go home to a family, who went to their really fancy job. And these people don't know. And even if they wanted to say something even if the addict wanted to say something to those people, they didn't feel like they could. Mm-hmm. So I think what I'm trying to share is that I want to let people know that not only is help available, I want people to know that it's okay to reach out to someone, even if you think, because sometimes we get a little thought that something's off about this person. You don't know for sure if it's drugs. You don't know what kind of drugs, but it's a really uncomfortable conversation to have to somebody to have to ask him something. Or if it's your child, God forbid, and you're wondering, I found some things that don't look right in my child's room, in my child's car. What should I say? What should I do? Or if my child says this, because I think there are all different kinds of paraphernalia that I used to hide around my house. I had paraphernalia in my car that the average person might not think twice about, but someone who even knows remotely of anything would have pause to say, wait a minute, I didn't smoke cigarettes. Why do I have a bunch of lighters around? I mean, just as simple as that. Why do I have a bunch of lighters? Why do I have a butane torch in my possession? a little baggie. This baggie is not for cookies and Skittles. These baggies that could be found in my possession or might be found around someone else's house. Why does this person have them? Where do they get them from?
What is the one thing you can say? Because, people can be very judgmental.
Absolutely.
And take it personally. I can't believe after everything we've done to support you, this is how you end up. I can't, the world, oh my God, he was arrested for meth. I believe in having compassion for everybody because these things can land on your doorstep when you least anticipate it. And so I wanted to talk to you and just let you know that this is a safe place for you to be able to come and share your story because your story is powerful. I lost my father as a result of his choices as an alcoholic. And so I'm on a lifelong quest to understand addiction. And you can't prevent it, but take the time to understand it because it's a disease. Addiction is a disease just like anything else.
Very much so.
It's not a flaw, it's a disease. And I really want for people to understand that. And I'm sure you've taken the steps to understand that it's not about you. Something overtook you. And that is the fact that you're fighting through it is so inspiring. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story with my Just Scylla audience.
No, it's no problem. And I'll just say, I to add to what you were just saying, the addiction is so powerful that, when you're in whether it be a relationship or your family, when you look at the behaviors of this addict and you say, well, how could you possibly choose this drug over, you're leaving your kids to do this, or you're jeopardizing your job, or, how could you be that mean or that stupid or that ignorant to do that? I will tell you that when you are in full addiction mode, there is nothing that comes before that drug. In particular with my drug of choice, with meth, amphetamine, that drug literally, whether I wanted to or not, my life revolved around drugs. It came before my partner. It came before my job. It came before my family. It was the first thing I thought about in the morning. It was the last thing I thought about at night. When I was at work, it was what I thought about. In the middle of doing whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing, all I'm thinking is, how can I get high? When can I get high? Where am I going to go get it? What time is it going to get it? I literally, that's how an addict thinks. So it's not at all personal. And the thing of it is it's not first until that person recognizes, okay, this is a problem. I am an addict. But then beyond that, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who is in addiction. And as I told him, I said, because he said, I want to get better. And I said, okay, that's good. That's awesome. But you got to put in the work. I had to put in the work. Lip service will not get you into recovery. There are drastic steps that you have to be willing to take. Or if you're dealing with someone in this love or compassion that you share with this person, that's got to be part of this honest conversation that, hey, I'm here for you. I want to help you. Will you help? Can you work with me? Can you meet me halfway? I want to help you get whatever assistance you need, but you got to be willing to put in the work. You've got to,
and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. I'll tell you, I had to go through my phone at one point, and I don't know if I spent an hour going through my phone, deleting, blocking numbers, erasing numbers. I went on social media. Any avenue I had that I contacted people or people could contact me, I had to physically go in and eliminate that access. And
wow.
And that took a lot of time because I was that much of an addict that I had everybody in my phone under codes. Party this, Ice, term for meth, Ice James, Ice, Bob. That was my nickname. So it was a quick, easy. So when I wanted to get high, boop 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 boop, go through my phone. And I could that was my drug connection. Or, so I had to cut out all that. So I didn't want anybody to have access to me. I wanted to make it much more difficult for me to get in contact with somebody. I even went so far as the car that I used, the car that I was stopped in when I got arrested in, and it wasn't much of a car, but it was my only form of transportation. I sold that car. I don't have a car to this day as we speak. I don't have a car because I'm starting all over again. But I felt like that car was part of it was attached to my mindset of using drugs. That car is where I hid drugs. That car is where I did drugs in. I got rid of the car. And I was willing to just give it all. I was willing to give it up all that, just changing up everything, and that the idle time that I had, I would fill that idle time with something, going to meetings and anything that I could think of just to change that old behavior, old mindsets, and so the people I was talking to, because I used to just, at first I would go to an NA meeting, but I just sit there and I wasn't really paying attention because I didn't really want to be there. But then I started going and I was actually participating, when people would say, hey, take my number down if you need me. So I got some phone numbers. I got a sponsor. So somebody because I think part of it is even when you're sitting in a room of addicts, you still could easily go, well, they don't know my story. They're not like me, and I'm not that bad. And
everybody's life sounds worse than what you're going through.
But at the end of the day, whether I was doing cocaine, meth, whatever, I'm an addict. Luckily now a recovering addict. But the fact of the matter is these people know my story. They've been down these same roads, and I just had to. I've even at times made lists of things that I need to remember about why I don't want to use drugs. From doing drugs in porta potties. It was a local park that I would go do drugs in a porta potty. That's gross. It's disgusting, but I did it. So that's on my list. The times that I would, do drugs in my mom's bathroom while I'm at a family function, that would go on my list because that's awful. The time that I was, driving a car and maybe had some friends in my car that didn't know I'm driving around with drugs that could have gotten myself arrested, maybe their car impounded, that goes on my list. All of these awful things, in the ways that I've destroyed my life or drugs have destroyed my life, those are now on my list so that the minute I think, oh, I can go get high right now, I can look back at this list and say, do you really want to get high? Are you willing to do are you willing to risk all this again, to the idea of going back through this, and add to the fact that you might die? Because the short periods of time that I was in jail, I heard stories from guys that were in there that had overdosed many times. They all these stories about just barely escaping death, or guys who were facing many years in prison over their drug use, and I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to be that way. I just want to share this with you because I thought about this today. There was even a guy, I'm just tell you how sick this disease is. There was a guy who at one point was covered in scabs. He had scabs on his face, on his hands. He was a drug dealer. He dealt meth. And initially I was like, oh my God, he looks disgusting. I wouldn't touch anything he had. But you know what? At the latter part of my usage, that was the first person I called. And I'm sitting here looking at this man covered in scabs, and I want to smoke what he has. How sick do you have to be to say, yeah, sign me up for that? I want what he has because I'm willing to risk it. The idea of looking like that, just the depravity of the depths of darkness that lifestyle sent me into is absolutely nothing that I'm willing to risk again. And again, this is going to be a life commitment for me. What I'm doing now is just part of the service in getting or staying healthy. I feel like to maintain my sobriety, to maintain this level of motivation, to have the pride back in myself, to be able to walk with my head held high, where people, still to this day will say, hey, aren't you such and such? I don't have to feel like I have to run away now and pray they don't guess really. I could say no, you don't know me.
Owning all of it.
Yeah. Whatever you might say after that. Don't I know you from KSDK? Okay, I saw you in the paper, and I'm prepared to respond. Yeah, you did, and here's what I've done with that. I've told my mother the same thing. If you ever run into somebody now and they say, oh, I saw your son in the paper. Yeah, and guess what my son is doing now? My son is out saving lives, and he's done that. I said, yeah, tell him that part. Don't. My life didn't end with my arrest. That was one chapter of my life. this is another chapter. This is an even better. You know, television didn't make me. You know, I didn't even have a degree in television, but you know, God put me in that position to be on television, to do that thing, and it was awesome when it was good. But here's another part of my life post the arrest, where I'm affecting lives. I'm able to use everything that's inside of me to inspire, to give hope back to some people. You know, I'm bound. You know, I spent my lunch break the other day talking to a friend who wanted to know how he could stop using, and that's what I did instead of my lunch break. You know, I'm serious about it. You know,
what are you doing now? There are a lot of people who want to know, what's Jeff doing now?
Right.
We see your promotional things
Right.
That are related to modeling and branding and all of that. And pride in being who you are today means even your job, you have to start from somewhere and continue to build to a place that's even healthier.
Yeah.
So for people who are interested, what is Jeff doing now? What are you doing now?
So I've spent probably the last 7 years as a brand ambassador, promotional model. So I've represented, big major, products and events for major companies: Coca-Cola, Army, T-Mobile, liquor brands, car companies, and I do that at all over the city for different events. And luckily, I've been able to do it even while I was in recovery. But I've been doing that, and it started slow, but I was able to make it work kind of as a full-time gig. But now I've added to my plate. I'm a concierge at a local business. And I don't know, I'm happy with where I am now, but I also know that I have a bright future. I don't know where my road
You certainly
is
do.
going to
You
take
certainly
me.
do.
Yeah, I don't know. I want this stage now to be part of where I go. So what that means, I don't know. I mean, I would love to. I'm a writer and a speaker by nature, so I want to be able to do that more. And now I think, far beyond my beliefs of what I had to talk about or write about before. Now I think I really have something to write and speak about. So I've thought about writing a book, or traveling around and sharing this story with people in person. And
you have dreams and you want to see them to fruition.
By
and
all
for
means.
anybody who might hesitate, as they did when you were looking for a news job, you're a different person, and you've put in the work, and you've put in the time, and you've paid your debt to society.
Absolutely.
And you're ready to make it happen in your life.
Absolutely.
And that is something to be so proud of.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you joined us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you joined me. Oh my God,
Thank you.
really, really wanted to hear this.
Yep.
I'm here to support you.
I appreciate it.
And I wish you the best. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for speaking to our audience.
This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
All right.